Well, welcome to Beyond the Message. We are expanding the conversation from our weekly teaching to help us to advance in our journey with Christ. And I'm Josh Welchel.
And I'm Pastor Alex.
Well, this week we are concluding our series, Rabbi, Jesus.
Yeah, it's been good.
It's been a great series. I loved going through it. And we've been really diving into the historical and the cultural context of Jesus as a rabbi and what it meant to truly follow him and be his disciple. And on Sunday, you spoke about our eyes and seeing like Jesus and the connection between our eyes, our heart, and generosity. And so I'd love to just ask you, how do you discern when and how to be generous?
I think personality has to be considered here. And I could use an illustration of me and Meredith, that she is a giver by nature, has a giving spirit, and I don't. And I'm good at receiving. Actually, I'm a very good receiver. But I've grown in my generosity of being with Meredith and hanging with Meredith, and quite honest, she's steered away from some emotional things because of her relationship with me. And so for me, anytime I feel led to be generous, it's from the Spirit. and so because it's not my own thinking.
Yeah.
It's the Lord speaking to me. And so anytime for me that I feel prompted to give or to take care of or to bless or to go over and above, then that's the Spirit of God speaking to my heart. And I've just learned to be sensitive to that and respond to that, obey that. With Meredith, it's, hey, I feel emotional about this. And so she has to ask, is this the Lord or is this some pity I feel or some emotion I feel towards this or whatever? And so you have to be careful based on how you're wired and your personality. But I think, quite honestly, the truth is even though some people are more emotional, and by the way, we pull up, to under a bridge and see people begging for money. You see all the personalities when my children were little, all the personalities in the car. One person's like, let's give them the car. And another person's like, that place right there is hiring. And every personality in the household. But at the end of the day, here's what I found. I never really ever regretted being generous. And so if I'm going to err, I want to err on the side of generosity.
Yeah, that's really good. Sarah and I, very similar in our personalities. I tend to be a little bit more focused, and she tends to be a little bit more emotional. Let's just give to everyone and everything, and so it's been a good partnership there in terms of
opposites attract is helpful usually.
Absolutely. When you think about generosity, I mean, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about generosity?
There's some people that I know who are extremely generous, and I could go down that path and describe some people who have been on our staff team in the past, and others in my life. But really, my mind goes to John 3:16 when I think of generosity. That God so loved the world that He gave. That's what lovers do, right? And that he didn't just love the world. He so loved the world. He gave what was most valuable to him in Jesus Christ. And so I think we give because God gave. We're just responding. We give because it belongs to Him. He's just allowed us to steward it. And so the first thing that comes to my mind is God and His heart in giving His Son Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So when you look at Scripture, obviously Jesus is the example of giving. But who else in the Bible other than Jesus best exemplifies generosity from your perspective?
Well, that's a great question, and that's a great question for you all to discuss. It would be one you could debate and argue over which story is better and who is more generous, et cetera. But my mind immediately goes to Mary. I believe it's Mary Magdalene who breaks the alabaster jar with the nard and the perfume, the expensive gift, and breaks it at the feet of Jesus. And if I'm not mistaken in that text, I'm not even sure which gospel or gospels that story is in, but what Jesus said is that you didn't offer anything, and she breaks this expensive thing, and this generosity will be talked about as long as there's time. And Jesus was moved by that generosity. Obviously, they all smelt it because of the perfume, but the thing that struck me in that whole story is Jesus' reaction to it. Said, hey, we're going to be talking about this for a long time, and here we are thousands of years later talking about her generosity. That's an example. I thought of a couple others while I was talking that I could argue are more important or better, but that's the one I'm going with.
Well, and certainly, I mean, it's all throughout Scripture. I mean, all throughout the pages is our
What's one you
stories
think
of generosity. I think of, I mean, the Apostle Paul comes to mind, just even in his desire to help the churches, and many of whom he didn't receive anything from. Yeah. And he did it out of a desire to be a type of Christ to them, to show that I'm willing to give of myself and give of my life, not receiving an income from you, because I don't want that to be a stumbling block to you hearing and receiving the gospel.
Yeah. So you can't use our two stories, but you guys come up with your own stories. Y'all debate it, argue with it, and have a fun discussion about it.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up the series, jump into the questions. And if you have any questions or any struggle with those questions, feel free to send us a note, Battle Creek Church, groups at battlecreekchurch.com, send us an email. But we are praying blessings over you as you discuss these questions below.
Yeah, God bless.